Hello and welcome to Space Doc Jury Star Trek Discovery episode. There's no point.
Let's give up. There's no pretense this is going to be short, people. Buckle up.
Absolutely not. Yes. I'm Lee.
I'm Peter.
And I'm so very, very tired.
So am I. I'm all over the place at the moment. So anyway, yes. So we were, I'm sure you've all listened to the broadcast thoughts on episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Star Trek Discovery.
And if you haven't, you should.
Yes.
I haven't.
You should. You should have.
Oh, I don't know. I've heard he's got some beef with one of the hosts.
Oh, yeah. God, okay.
I heard he slept with his wife.
Oh, my God. Right, okay, scandal. But, yes, if you have listened to those, you really should. And then come back here, because this is going to be a more general Star Trek Discovery chat. We will talk about specific episodes and there will be spoilers contained within. However, we will probably give you a big warning beforehand. But suffice to say, spoilers may slip through while we discuss this. So if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the first 3 episodes of Star Trek Discovery and you haven't followed along with the broadcast, then what the hell are you doing here? You've only got yourself to blame if anything gets spoiled for you, really. So go on, off you go. We'll wait.
While you're at it, go watch Blade Runner 2.
Oh, yeah, do that. Anyway, so, yes, so we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery. We're going to talk about what we thought about it, how we feel it's going, where we think it's going, and of course, the rather the thorny issue of how it feels like within the Trek universe. Does it work? I mean, we've got lots of opinions online with lots of people going, "Oh, it's not right," or "It is right," and already
is it Star Trek? Isn't it Star Trek?
People
want to know
exactly. And where else could you come for all that information than the world's 754th most listened to Star Trek based?
I think that's a very optimistic number.
Yeah.
1,701st. Go
yes.
with that.
I'd be fine with that one.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. Yeah, I'd be happy with that too. So, right, okay. Well, in case you haven't been, oh God, the leg's fallen off me bloody arm. Don't worry.
You've got legs on your arms?
Yes,
you need to see a doctor. Quick.
Oh, it's on my microphone arm. Oh, the legs are falling off. Look. There you go. See? Sound effects and everything. Right. Basically, unless you've been living under a rock, you won't have failed to notice that Star Trek Discovery is back on. And it's on Netflix and on CBS Access if you're in the States.
Which is like a version of Netflix which only plays CBS shows.
Yes. In other words, it's just CBS Netflix for Star Trek, one show.
And a Big Bang Theory if you really hate yourself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you'd sooner have a pineapple enema, then go for it. And it for the moment it basically focuses on the story of Michael Burnham, a officer in Starfleet at the dawn of the Klingon War, the Klingon Federation War, set 10 years, as it's been overemphasized repeatedly, 10 years before Kirk and Spock. And that's kind of about it. That's if you haven't seen it, I suggest strongly that you go stop this cast and go and watch it.
Should we touch on briefly? This did have a somewhat
tumultuous.
Yeah, let's go with that word. Production. It was originally announced last year, I believe, to coincide with the 50th anniversary of all things Star Trek.
Yes.
But then it was told, actually, it's not going to come out in 2016. It's going to actually come out in January of 2017. And then it didn't. And then it was going to be March of 2017, and it wasn't. And then it'll be out when it's out. And then it was coming out in fall. And it finally landed in September. So there was lots of delays.
Yes.
Originally, it was announced that Brian Fuller, formerly of Star Trek Deep Space Nine and since gone on to work on 1,000,001 amazing things, including Hannibal and
Pushing Daisies,
American Gods, and just tons of stuff. Was going to be the showrunner until he wasn't.
Yes,
there was whoever was basically running PR for this certainly seemed to have dropped the ball. Yes,
and then just to add, for my own personal thing, just because I feel this is worth noting because it's really annoying, is that then what happens is they brought on Akiva Goldsman, who is as one of the directors and executive producers and writers, and he's done such wonderful things as Batman and Robin.
Hey. I used to see
but to counter that, they do have Nicholas Meyer from Star Trek 2 and 6.
Yes, but nevertheless,
But then they also have Alec Kurtzman. So
yeah, Alec Kurtzman and Robert Orkey. Well, not Robert Orkey, but Alec Kurtzman. I mean, Akiva Goldsman, who also worked on Transformers: The Last Night and The Da Vinci Code and Lost in Space. And yeah, the Starsky and Hutch movie, the Paranormal Activity 2, and The
Room,
The Client, not far off at the moment. iRobot, Insurgent, Rings. He worked on Rings, the lesser of all of the different Ring spin-offs. Yeah. So yeah, you can see why I was really pleased to see his name on the credits. Really pleased.
But on the plus side, they started announcing the cast, and the cast sounded really good, so that was good.
Yes. Most notably Doug Jones, or what do you call him on the
Doug Bugger, because we can remember his surname. He's Doug Bugger now.
Yep. And
then we had Michelle Yeoh, who it later transpired might not be in it for all of it, but we'll get to that in a bit. Jason Isaacs.
Yes, hello, Jason Isaacs. Sorry.
Hello.
Am I the only one who does that?
Yes.
Say hello to Jason Isaacs.
We all do that.
You've got to say hello to Jason Isaacs. There you go.
Must be done.
And that's about it, really, isn't it? There's I nearly said Charlize Theron, but then I know that she's turning up in the Orville, so that's gonna let's keep away from the Orville.
Yes, don't cross.
Look, just in the same way the Orville one ended up tracking over there. We're probably going to get some back and forth a bit later. But
we are.
I think what's important to say here? This was the first Star Trek since 2005 that Enterprise went off the air.
Yes.
So it's the first one since 2005. And also, it kind of just landed at a time when space science fiction, was coming back. We've suddenly gone from, since the end of Battlestar, pretty much sod all, to now we have Discovery, the Orville, The Expanse. And, all of these, in their own way, are fantastically well-made shows. The production values are better than anything we could have hoped for, ever.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean... Yeah, certainly with Discovery, the first 2 episodes, the effects and the budgets are easily on a par with the last few Star Trek films.
Yeah, well, I mean...
And that's not putting down the Star Trek films.
No, absolutely. But, I mean, $8.5 million an episode, I was hoping it'd look good. You'd kind of hope. But anyway...
One word, yes.
Just remember, throwing money at things doesn't always work.
No. Just ask anyone who works on Transformers. But anyway, so that's the basics of it. I mean, we are in a situation where we have unbelievable technology advances. We have film quality effects on TV. We have science fiction literally going absolutely bananas on all media. And out comes Star Trek. So I guess firstly is just, I suppose we just do the quick impression, don't we? What do you think about it so far, Pete?
I'm still undecided, it has to be said. Rather similar to what you were saying about Orville, seeing the told you to be references. For me, so far the tone has been all over the place. So it's very hard to get a grips with what I mean. The first episode had a bit of sort of exploration and wonder of the universe and all that stuff when she was in the rocket suit thing.
Yeah.
The second one was a bit more of a sort of heavy political talky stuff, and this last one was just very dark and weird and yeah. So I don't know what to make of it in terms so far after just 3 episodes, because it does seem to be pinging about all over the place.
Yes. Okie dokie. And what about you, Andy?
Yeah, much like what Peter just said, it almost feels like we've had 2 shows, if you will. The first 2 episodes, which I would describe more of a prelude than a pilot, if you will, were a very different sort of tone and pacing to what we got in the first, and I hope you can see my finger quotes, pilot episode, which was episode 3. That was so far out of left field and such a hard right turn tonally, not only against what is, and again, finger quotes, what is Star Trek, but what we'd seen in the first 2 episodes. I actually think I got whiplash.
Yeah.
I got the bends, I think.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I really did. They weren't perfect by any stretch of imagination, but it felt like Star Trek. The effects and everything were great. It had a cast that I was starting to grow attached to, be interested in, and I quite liked the look of the ships and all that was, that was kind of cool. It was kind of building something nice. But what we get to when we get to the third, which is kind of the proper pilot episode, all of that is now meaningless. It's just gone away. And I'll talk a little bit more about why I think that is, maybe when we get to the more spoilery sections.
Okay. I mean, for me, oh, sorry, it's just rubbing my eyes. For me, to me, it feels like an other sci-fi show right now. It's one of those shows right now that doesn't seem to have an identity. To me, it just seems to be there are elements there that I'm seeing from Battlestar. There are elements I'm seeing from The Expanse. There are elements I'm seeing from all different sources and all different places. And no, I'm not going to quote that, so I won't. But basically, and so to me, it just is all over the fucking place. And the problem is that you can't get a bead on what you expect it to be or what you think it should be. And to me, if someone had not, if they weren't wearing their little Delta badges, and the ships didn't comprise of just a saucer and nacelles, there would be absolutely nothing to discern that from any other show that I'm watching at the moment. I mean, I would not look at that and go, oh yeah, that's an evolution of Star Trek. Oh wow, that's a really good thing. Look at that, that's Star Trek. Because, avoiding the hoary old argument about technology and the way it doesn't look like the 60s and all this kind of thing, but to me it just tonally doesn't. It tonally feels like a early 2000s science fiction.
I mean, I was prepared for a sort of a visual problem, having just seen the stills and things. So I was steeling myself for that. But you're right. It's the tonal dislocation that's really weird, and I suppose there's an extent to which most of the Star Trek TV series have all had a slightly different tone to one another, so perhaps you ought to expect that. But this one's so far removed from what we've had before, and I say so uneven as well, that, it's very hard to say, this is definitely Trek. I say that moment when she was in that rocket suit in the first episode, that felt like Trek. The wonder of discovery and, finding something new and the beauty of space and stuff like that felt like Star Trek.
Yeah.
But that was just a moment that was gone.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, again, I don't want to kind of step into the spoiler territory yet, but that to me is the key element. I mean, Star Trek is first and foremost, and even in the title of the bloody show, it's discovery, it's looking forward, it's advancing humanity, it's optimism, it's not grimdark. And what it is, and whenever Star Trek has tried to do grimdark, it's always had to bounce back pretty darn quickly.
Well, even the darkest episodes of Deep Space Nine, which I think we'll all agree was probably the darkest series prior to this.
Yes.
Yeah. Even at its darkest, it was still more. It was looking at the darkness rather than embracing it or stepping into it. In my thoughts, and I mean, I posted a quote the other day from Gene Roddenberry, and I'll just read it out. It was, "Star Trek was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins not just to tolerate, but to take a special delight in the differences in ideas and differences in life forms. If we cannot learn to actually enjoy these small differences, to take a positive delight in those small differences between our own kind here on this planet, then we do not deserve to go out into space and meet the diversity that is almost certainly out there." It's a very, very positive and very kind of, I hate using this word, but I'm going to use it, woke way of looking at the future. And it was always something very unique to Star Trek, really. Whereas certainly with the third episode of Discovery so far, yes, you have aliens there, and no one seems to bat an eyelid if you're a different race, color, or creed. But at the same time, everyone is just a massive arsehole on that ship.
Pretty much.
It's no one has any interactions. I mean, again, I know Lee's quite down on Star Trek in general, but I think at one time we've all looked at Star Trek and thought, you know what, I wouldn't mind serving on that ship or being in that universe, sort of thing. It's always been like, it's great with the technology, and it's very optimistic and looking forward. One day, effectively on the Discovery, and I'm like, nope, no, thank you very much. I said this to Lee earlier. I said, what it feels like that third episode is it felt like bad Star Trek fan fiction, where, and I fell foul of this when I was younger as well. I used to believe that, good drama is born of conflict. You have to have conflicts. You have to have conflict everywhere. Otherwise, you just can't have the drama and all that. And I've grown up since then. I realized that's not the case. But this just feels like everyone has to be in conflict with everyone else. And I mean, again, when Michael first enters engineering and the engineer comes out and he's just such a massive arsehole and he's belittling her. And I'm not getting into spoilers, but this is the character thing, really. It was just a case of, who assigned you here? I assign everyone here. Did the captain send you here? Well, if you know the captain sent to here, then why are you doing this? You're being a dick for no good reason.
Yeah. I mean... Oh, sorry, Pete. You were going to say something. Sorry.
No. I was just murmuring agreement. Basically.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. I mean, for me, the thing with all of it is, to restate my position on Star Trek, because I feel like I have to every time we start talking about this. But at the end of the day, my problem is, and it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for in this case. My problem has been that I've enjoyed Star Trek since original series, and my problem is that it is what it is, and it sits in a box, and it doesn't really evolve or change. But no. Just this is my opinion. So the thing is, when it does try to change, it tries too hard. It tries to go, right, okay, so we're all optimistic. We're all dancing through the flowers. We're all having lovely times with aliens, and we're all expanding our universes, and every week we have a moral conundrum, and then every week we solve it, and then the captain moralizes and everyone fucks off home. This felt exactly what you were saying. It feels like Star Trek fan fiction for people who still haven't got over the comics revolution in the 90s. People who still look at Dark Knight Returns and still look at Watchmen and still hope that their parents will look at this stuff and go, oh yeah, actually, you're not doing childish pursuits by reading comics. That's what Discovery feels like. Discovery feels like what it is like the elastic band of optimism in Star Trek has gone too far stretched, and someone's let it go, and they've just gone, right, fine, fuck it. Everyone.
Oh, my eye!
Yeah, exactly. No one's forward thinking. No one cares. Everyone's bleak. The whole thing. And yes, I understand it's war, but everyone's just like out for themselves, bucking for promotion. If the Discovery rocked up in Next Generation, it would be the ship that Picard would basically moralize about. They would be the protagonist ship. the antagonist ship.
And likewise, in the original series, we had plenty of mad captains and commodores in the original series, but they were never the central characters. They were the people the central characters were trying to overcome.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like in Voyager with the Equinox.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, the Equinox is a bloody good example because I watched that the other day. It was on CBS Action, and I watched that, and it is the same thing. The captain just going, actually, you know what? We found some aliens, and if we trap them and they die, we can use their bones as fuel in the engine room and fire us across the galaxy in like milliseconds.
Jobs are good.
Jobs are good. And let's kill aliens. We only need to kill 60 of them to get back to the Federation. And the thing is, right away in that episode, you're meant to feel abhorrent. You're meant to feel horror at what this guy has become. Whereas with Discovery, as we will get into in a minute, as soon as you're on board that ship, you're just like, fuck off. You know, this ship is just USS Vivisection. We're just off on a tangent, and this would not exist. This ship would not exist in the Star Trek universe as we actually understand it. Even in the JJ universe, this thing wouldn't exist.
Well, I've had presented to me a theory, again, finger quotes, which might explain it. I mean, let's sum up the non-spoilery a bit. So if anyone does want to go and watch it, they can do. And then we can kind of dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
I guess.
Go on.
I mean, for myself, I'm going to give it a season at least. I'm always going to do that because, you know, it takes a while to do it. And I know that given the troubled production of this, they had to do a course correction midway. My understanding is at one point, those first 2 episodes weren't supposed to actually be an episode as such. They were supposed to be flashbacks, which would occur throughout the course of the series. And they just realized that wasn't working. So they put those at the beginning and did this. So I guess after the mid-series break, you know, we might get a shift in course. So that's fun. I would say it's definitely worth watching if you like Star Trek. It's definitely worth watching if you like science fiction. Just because it is, and I always think it's important to expose yourself to other things as well. Just to, you know, you can't just live in your bubble and say I dislike anything outside of it. You need to go and have a look. But that being said, you know, life is too short to keep investing in something you're hating. If you're not getting on with it after, you know, the halfway point, by all means, bail out. I think this is definitely something though we're probably going to revisit once we're a bit further into the proper Discovery part of the show, because really, what we've had is 2 episodes of Star Trek Shenzhou and then 1 episode of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, I mean, I'll conclude before we get into the spoiler discussion, but by saying that for me, I'm going to give it till episode 5, possibly 6, and just see where we're going, because I have a feeling that with this last episode, they established a format that will be going onwards, which makes me feel like it's going to be a Scooby-Doo stroke Lost style show for the rest of the run. But I'll explain more in the spoiler section. What about you, Pete?
I'm going to give it a chance to see if it's going to settle down with one style or not, and then appraise whether that's something I can live with or not. Because I do know for a fact presumably anyway, we've got at least 1 comedy episode coming up, because there's a certain returning original series character that was certainly used for comic effect in the original series.
Yeah.
So, you know, quite how Harry Mudd's going to fit into this universe, I'm kind of looking forward to finding out, because I can't see how we can have a comedy episode given the ship of evil that we've got at the moment. So
I will say that Mudd sort of tangentially appeared. It was in like a prequel thing to Into Darkness, which again was an Kurtzman thing. And in that it was, you know, a female version of Harry Mudd, as it was the tradition at the time. But they kind of stripped away the comedy from the character, and it was more a Han Solo sort of rogue they were trying to make. It didn't work. It kind of fell very flat. But I would check your expectations on the possibilities of a.
Because, I mean, the bottom line is that every Star Trek series we've had so far has had certain episodes that have been comedy episodes.
Yeah.
And I can't quite see how they're going to do that with this setup. And if they don't do it, it really isn't going to feel much like Trek, to be honest. So. I mean, that was the thing that worked so well for me in the third JJ film, even though it wasn't him that did it. Beyond, was it?
Yes,
already. That one had a nice level of humour that wasn't just people sniping at each other, and actually that seemed to seem the most Trek-like of the three.
It really does.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. I mean,
I'm going to need another shirt.
Yeah. I mean, I've got my problems with that particular film, but I don't deny that it's definitely the most Trek of the three. But okay then. Well, so here we are, and now let's I guess we're going to just pile on in, really.
Well, yeah. Let's get into this. So I'll just tell you my theory that was given to me.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let's just do a marker for the space. So I'm going to put in a little bit of music in there. Right. Okay then. Go on in. Okay. Give us your theory.
Again, this isn't my theory. This is a theory that was given to me by Scott Snowden. I don't know if there's any validity behind this. It's just something he floated out. But Discovery is a Section 31 ship, evidenced by all the shit you see going on it, the black badges, and the fact the registry is 1031.
1031 meaning what? Sorry,
Section
31. Section 31.
Right. Okay.
That would be really annoying if that's the case.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
We don't need Section 31, the series. We really don't.
No.
Life's too much like Section 31, the series.
Yes, I need some escapism, damn it.
The other thing is also, when it comes to Section 31, I mean, I know of it, and I've seen... Didn't they turn up in
Enterprise?
Yes. Everything turned up in Enterprise eventually. Exactly. Fucking Borg turned up in Enterprise.
Yeah. So, and even like they turn up on DS9?
They started on DS9, yeah.
Right.
That's where it was introduced. And it worked for DS9. It made sense with that series. It never made sense of Enterprise.
So basically, I mean, firstly, all I can say is Section 31... If it turns out to be that, fine. Okay, fine. We'll deal with that in a second. But for me, Section 31 is exactly what it appears to be, which is essentially you've made a utopia, you've made a utopian ideal. How do we make bad guys in the utopian ideal? Well, we have a secret organization. And we insert
the central idea is quite good. How do you protect your utopia? Can you be, it's basically saying can you all be hippies? No, that's not going to work, is it? So you've got Starfleet. Well, is that going to be enough to protect? Because you've got other races who've got their undercover organisations, Tal Shiar and all that. Why isn't the Federation? So it's kind of sort of logical thinking, and DS9 got away with it just because they were facing bleak times. But all the way through, it wasn't like, oh yeah, Section 31 are coming to the rescue. It was, this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening.
With Deep Space Nine is that the cast the crew were appalled that such an organisation exists and fought against it.
Yeah.
Whereas if this is in fact the case here, we are in the belly of the beast, embracing it. And I just think that would be a misstep. But before I get too far into that, I just wanted to go back a little bit and talk about the first two episodes, which I really liked. Because again, I really, really liked, like Pete said, that first episode had so many cues, things like, strangely enough, a motion picture. Some of the music cues looked like they were lifted almost direct from Jerry Goldsmith. And when she's going on that thruster pack, and you've got that great shot where you just see her teeny tiny moving away from the Shenzhou. It's just such a nice little shot. And, it was that joy of exploration. There was the nice little moments when Michael and Saru are kind of fighting over the science console. That was a crew I wanted to spend some time with. That was a crew I'm like, yeah, I'd kind of like to, go and, explore the cosmos here a little bit. I'm down with this. The captain, what was it? It's Giorgio or something like that?
Yeah, Giorgio.
Yeah, we'll call her Georgie. Captain Georgie, just seemed like a good captain. Very much in the vein of, I suppose Picard, Kirk, Janeway, whatever you want to say, all their foibles, but she felt like a Starfleet captain. And then, I just really, really enjoyed it. And then, again, at the end of the second episode, the ship's effectively destroyed, and that's it. We're done with it.
Yeah,
it just seems like a very weird way to introduce your ship and your crew and your series by having. I mean, all we were really introduced with were to Michael, and from what we can see in episode 3, she's a very different person in episode 3 to what she was in the first 2, and Saru.
What do you think, Pete? The first 2 episodes. I know you've covered it in broadcast, but
Yeah, no. I mean, ultimately, that interplay between Michael and Giorgio was really good. That's felt like something Trek hadn't done for a long while, and up until the point, obviously, of the mutiny, you really bought that friendship, and as a result, the mutiny hurt that bit more as well. So that was all good stuff. I loved the Shenzhou's design. It's a shame that she was the ship that bought it and not bloody Discovery, but never mind.
Yeah,
it's still early. Give it time.
Yeah, I didn't quite see why Savick had to be involved.
Savick.
Yeah. What's Savick? That would have been even weirder, wouldn't it? But yeah,
it would. Yeah.
But at least it would have been different, I guess. But no, Sarek. Really, again with the Spock family, it's like somebody put something on Tumblr about Sarek. He's a really good parent, isn't he? He's got one son who is doing okay in Starfleet, but then goes a bit rogue and disappears off to Romulus. He's got another son who's a complete whacked out hippie weirdo that sees into people's minds and heals their emotions. And then she's now got this adopted daughter who's a bloody mutineer. Well done. Round of applause for that parent.
It's a little bit of Star Wars syndrome here, isn't it? Like the Skywalkers were the only family in the galaxy.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean,
and there was all on the downside. There was all the problems that we knew there were going to be because it's a bloody prequel series. So
I'm loving prequels are stupid on the broadcast.
Yeah, so that is now a running theme because it's really getting up my goat. I mean, in the first 2 episodes, you've got stuff like Klingons already having cloaking devices that they haven't nicked off the Romulans yet, and stuff like that, and holographic communication, for heaven's sake, that Deep Space Nine briefly tried, and then they realised looked crap, so they didn't carry on with it. But
yeah, I mean, taking the technology to one side for one thing. The one thing I watched the first 2 episodes, and the first episode didn't mind so much. I thought I was okay.
That was definitely the best one we've seen so far. Yeah.
The second episode, however, I thought you'd pick up on this, and I thought you'd be a bit more, I don't know, a bit more angry about the whole thing. But essentially, the second episode was the 2009 Star Trek.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that. I'm not so familiar enough with, because I've only seen it, I think, twice for that to really register with me, and B, I'm not so bothered about that really.
It was more to do with the fact that it was lazy, and that was my overriding feel of the second episode. And in the case of the third episode, which we'll get to in a minute, I mean, it feels like it's not Star Trek in terms of its writing. It feels like what's happening is they're just taking something that's worked in other shows or elsewhere and just gone and repurposed it. And in the case of the episode 2, literally in Star Trek 09, Kirk, I'm sure we've done this on this cast already, but basically Kirk tries to mutiny to save the ship. The first officer, who doesn't like him, basically sides with the captain rather than siding with actual logic to save the ship. They throw Kirk off the ship, basically because they haven't got a brig, and so that's the only difference there. But then in both cases, the hero gets out of the brig to save the day. And then the disgraced first officer or captain suddenly decides that actually, you know what, even though they've been bad, probably they're the best person to beam over to the enemy ship for a 2-person versus the entire ship gunfight, including a punch-up that starts with someone leaping from a balcony onto someone else. Exactly the bloody same. And
what troubled me more about that was the fact that the whole thing was that, she points out, we mustn't kill Tukumva because we don't want to, create a martyr. So what does she do?
She actually does it.
Shoots him dead.
Yeah. And even funnier is the thing that really got me with that was she was the one who mentioned it. and you see her actually switch the gun from stun to kill.
Yeah, she's kill this bastard. It's like, hang on.
Yeah, well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then inform you 5 seconds later that it's it's Vulcan. It's the Vulcan way. You know, everything's logical, and it's like you can't keep swinging that fucking vine around and sort of saying, "Hey, look at me. I'm a Vulcan. I've got Vulcan logic." And then 2 minutes later going, "Oh, I'm not really a Vulcan." It's like, well, if you're going to do that, then just lean into it. But but it felt again like someone was trying to rush Spock. They just sort of went, Spock's got our human half, and every now and again it would come out in a kind of an episode.
Isn't it fascinating how Trek can't get away from the Vulcans? I mean, it has what Deep Space Nine is the one series where you very rarely see a Vulcan.
Or the Klingons. The Klingons as well.
Well, no, you do see quite a few of them in season 4, but
season 4 onwards, they're probably more Klingons than DS9 in all the Trek.
Yeah, but in terms of Vulcans, you see, you've got obviously Spock in the original series, fair enough, classic character there, and then you get Next Generation. They don't generally do Vulcans, but obviously Data's kind of like the replacement, but at least they're trying something new there. That's good. DS9 don't do Vulcans, and then you got Voyager, where we've got Tuvok, who admittedly is one of the better characters on Voyager, but we're back to we've got to have a Vulcan on board. And
just going back to DS9, it wasn't originally Dax supposed to be the Vulcan, but it just didn't play out that way.
Don't think so. No.
I remember season 1, she being very kind of.
And then you get Enterprise, where you've got what's her face. So Spock's no longer the first Vulcan in Trek, and now we've got this new series where we won't have a Vulcan, except she was adopted by Vulcans, so she's kind of Vulcan somehow.
Yeah.
Where are me Andorians at? Damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean that
Tellarites.
I've got no frame of reference now, Donnie. But
Piggy Men, which they brought back for Enterprise.
Oh my god! Yes, now I remember. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
They swear a lot, so
Yeah, maybe that's me. Maybe I'm a Tellarite in another life. And yeah, that was the thing. It was like everything in Discovery Episode 2 felt rushed or nicked from something else. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to get too het up about this because second episode, fucking how many Trek series have we watched and we've had to get through to like third season before something starts to happen, So
yeah, but that ain't going to wash anymore, is it? Because there's too many other sci-fi series to watch. That's the point. Next Generation got away with it because it was like that was our. I mean, even Doctor Who was off air at that time, so that was our sci-fi. We were going to watch that. What May anyway?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's a good thing, too, because, let's face it, you put Next Generation on today, you ain't getting through season 1 and 2.
No, we're certainly not getting through series 1. I mean...
Yeah, series 1 would have killed it stone dead, to be honest. So, so for me, I can't get past this kind of weird writing. It's the writing feels like a mess.
It feels like there's lots of people putting an oar in and no overall style.
There is design by committee, definitely. And I'll tell you something else about episode 3 that I felt. I felt the episode as a whole was very rushed. And I realised, I watched it again before we did this, why that was. They're taking for granted we have a certain shorthand with Star Trek and the world of Star Trek. And we know how things are meant to play out. And because they're taking that for granted, they're not doing what a lot of other Star Trek shows would do. Like, any other show, when there was a ship disabled and we had to beam over to it, you'd have a huge, they'd go over to the ship, you'd have to spend maybe a good quarter of the episode just exploring before they find out what caused the issue. Another quarter of the episode at least trying to resolve the issue, work out the problem, and then the last bit of them trying to escape. Whereas this, it was really just like a quarter in the middle, because the first half of the episode was just her arriving, and the final bit was, as you say, Captain Vivisection. It felt very, very rushed, and they're taking that for granted. But at the same time, they're trying to do something so radically different that none of those tropes really apply. So all of a sudden, this episode, it just felt very rushed, almost. It's like they just didn't want to spend the time on the ship explaining it.
I mean, we'll get into. I think we'll cover episode 3 as a separate thing overall. I mean, because as you say, the first two feel like a prelude. And I mean, I'll just do my last thoughts on those first two, and then you guys can have at it, because I know that out of all of the three of us, I know that the listeners, especially on the Facebook group, want you two to go at it, because I'm just going to sit here and go grumble, whinge, grouse, complain. But
I think we know our audience well enough to know that that's what they want to hear.
Right. Well, I mean, so for me, I think that the first two episodes, how can I put it? The first two episodes were encouraging in a way of sort of, look, this is, you know, they were doing the 2009 thing. This isn't your parents' Star Trek. They were doing that, and that's fine. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. It felt like the 2009 Star Trek in many ways, not least because they were ripping off entire plot sections. The only thing I didn't like at all, and I took against completely, was the Klingons. I just absolutely took against them 100%, because their motivations felt like someone was reading the newspaper and saw some press release from so-called Islamic State and went, "Oh, there you go. That's our Klingons." And that to me was the problem. Their motivations are utterly pointless. They spend episode 1 sitting there doing sweet fuck all, but pontificating and going, "Oh, look, they're all lying. They're lying. We're a disparate, you know, here's exposition 475. Here's loads of stuff. Talk all about the Klingon Empire. It's 24 ships." And then do nothing. And then they do nothing in episode 2, and then all of a sudden it's just like they wait for Michelle Yeoh to go, "We come in peace," and he goes, "See, look,
trigger word."
It's yeah, triggered, and then they fire, have a big dust up, and then
with their laser pointer phasers.
Yeah, with their PowerPoint phasers.
Yeah.
And then they turn, and then the I can't even remember what his name is. The guy who looked like he'd been who looked like he'd been hit in the face by a frying pan, and he turned around and he goes, "See what they're like," and it's like, wow, that's the worst writing I've ever experienced in my entire life. They spent 2 episodes doing nothing but exposition, instigate a fight, watch it happen, win the fight, and then blame the Federation for it while looking at it. And to me, that was just like, did nobody else see this? Did nobody else see that this was utterly stupid? And then it's like, we're now at war. It's like, what? How? Why are you at war? You've literally just turned up, they've said come in peace, we've shot them, they've shot back, and we're blaming them for it. It's like, it just seemed like it was just an excuse to start the war. And they couldn't have write it, so they just went, let's wrap it all up in we're religious fervour. We're doing it to unite the army, we're to unite the houses, and it's just like, and nobody does that. I've seen Game of Thrones, and I know, you know, these things take time. They need subtlety. They need to be built up. You know, this, you know, one leader to sort of rule them all, be a martyr, and sort of take control. That doesn't happen just by having one bloke standing on a bridge going, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to reunite everyone by having a fight. Who's with me?" It's like, what? It was just shorthand, cheap writing. And it was so naff that I just was like, you know what? Fuck these guys. I really hope I don't see them or this plot again.
But this is Tecumseh the Unforgettable. That everybody's forgotten about by the time we get to Next Generation.
Yeah, I mean, every time you say his name, I keep expecting him to break out into Hakuna Matata.
What a wonderful phrase.
Yeah, exactly. It's a philosophy. But yeah, so to me,
and they don't care about bodies once a Klingon's dead.
No,
they just do the death howl and that's it. Except here, they're beaming the bodies aboard and attaching them to ships for reasons.
And do you know what?
They've killed all their gods in the past, except now they're all very religious for reasons.
Yeah, but again, you know, I would say this: that the route that if someone had turned around and gone, oh, she landed on their, I don't know, their mausoleum ship, and effectively desecrated all the corpses by turning up and landing on it, and they start a war because of that.
Yeah, that would have made some sense of having the bodies in the first place, wouldn't
exactly. It would have made sense, and it would have just been like, okay, that's a cultural thing. We've culturally overstepped the bounds. They've, you could have easily written it. You go, okay, so they come to bury the bodies, but they're going to do it on enemy territory because it's a symbolic thing. They die on enemy turf. They are buried on enemy soil, sort of thing. That would have been perfectly fine. And Shinzu turns up, doesn't understand the significance, sends someone over, desecrates the cemetery effectively, and starts a war. That, to me, makes sense. Having someone standing there and just explaining why they're doing it, explaining that they're deliberately antagonizing the Federation, and when the Federation don't do anything, shooting at the Federation and then getting shot back and going, look, see? To me, that was just utter bollocks. And the whole thing of sticking bodies on the outside of the ship suddenly became nothing more than just a plot device for blowing up the ship at the end.
Yeah, to get a bomb on it, yeah.
And
that was a bit strange.
Because again, let's be honest, the ever noble and utopian Federation who respect all things and all cultures, happily will beam a body, happily use the dead in a fight. Well done. That's honourable. I mean, that's totally good. We desecrated a corpse with a big bomb. Fantastic. Well done, you. And it was at that point I just was like, okay, this is not even attempting to do Star Trek in terms of ideals and morals and morality and understanding. It's just doing fan wank. It's just doing, this is a Star Trek universe and it's war, which is basically like Axanar, and what's the other one that fucking gave that bloke from the Enterprise B? There's all these fan films where they've got lots of money, and the first thing they do is, rather than make a Star Trek series where they go out and explore things and have to deal with a moral conundrum, they haven't got the writers, so they basically go, but we have got like 50 guys with copies of Lightwave, so let's go and make a war. It's war. And
what is it good for?
Yeah, exactly. But every Star Trek fan film is that. It's war. And do you know what? For a utopian society, the Federation has never been at a moment's peace in fan films and fan fiction. It just never has.
Well, it comes back to what I was saying before, though. It's a very it is that false feeling that to have good drama you have to have conflict, and they read conflict as fighting.
Yeah,
and that's where they fall down. I mean, it's like you said, it comes down to the writers. Again, I'm not painting all fan films in that way. I know that there's the Star Trek Continues, which tries to do TOS stories and everything, but you're right. The vast majority of them tend to boil down to, like you say, space battles. And speaking of space battles, I will say this about it: it was very well done. The effects were great for that. They had the
phases, but yeah,
they were. I mean, this is the thing. Again, I don't want to get tied up in the whole "is it Prime, is it not Prime" and all that sort of thing. But if you took this as a series which followed Enterprise but preceded the 2009 film, it fits right in, like absolutely fine. It just slots in perfectly. It just sits in it quite happily. I don't see why it can't be that.
Well, should we deal with the elephant in the room before we get to episode 3? I mean,
which elephant? There's a fucking herd of them in here.
Well,
some
okay,
of them are pink.
Yeah, okay, yeah, some of them are pink. Well, then maybe that was the beer after seeing Blade Runner. No, I mean, should we just deal with this whole thing about how it fits into the universe and why canon should be shot out of a cannon?
Well, yes, absolutely. Canon is. Canon exists just to drive fans absolutely insane, near as I can tell. Because no one at the studio gives any fucks at all.
No. I mean, with all the respect to you, Mr. Reverend, Mr. Org, I have to say that laser beams spraying like Peter North in a paint mixer doesn't bother me as much as as much as suddenly an admiral walking around the bridge in a hologram,
Yeah, I know.
ordering people about.
Yeah.
But I see even the hologram. I've now spoken on a broadcast about my headcanon about that explains Enterprise and everything, which very briefly, for anyone who hasn't heard it, is I have the opinion that when Picard and co went back to stop the Borg in First Contact, they kind of messed up the timeline a little bit. You know, let's face it, killing his co-crew and pouncing around and helping him fix everything and the whole Borg incident. You know, they say the whole don't step on a butterfly because you'll change the future. Yeah, well, they took a massive dump all over history. And that's what led to Enterprise, which is a much more militaristic view of Starfleet than we've seen before, and everything like that. That then led to the 09 film, and Discovery, in my little headcanon, fits in there, in between those two. Because I think you can look... the uniforms even look like an evolution of the jumpsuits from Enterprise.
They do, yes. Which is logical. So
it is logical, it makes sense. And again, look at the technology. You go from Enterprise, which was, flat screen monitors, and hell, Enterprise looked more advanced from Kirk's Enterprise.
But in fairness, I will say this, and I'm not, like I say, I take all of the but you're not a fan anymore comments right on the chin. I will suck those up. But in terms of Enterprise, the NX-01 looked like an unfinished ship. It looked all hull plates. The interior looked like someone had just cobbled together. It looked like the interior of the Phoenix writ large.
No, yes, that's true. But I'm saying as an evolution, you go from the Phoenix to the NX-01 to the Shenzhou and supposedly the Discovery, and then on to the 09, the Kelvin. I mean, look at the Kelvin from the 09 film.
Yeah.
The bridge for that looks almost identical to what we saw in the Shenzhou.
Yeah, but my point was that you could easily get from Enterprise, leap forward 70 years and go, well, there you go. There's TOS Kirk. We're fine. I think you can.
I disagree with you there, sir. I don't have a problem with it, but I think I don't think you can get from there to there. Well, it's just in the pastel colours and things like that, and the things on the bridge. And then look, I'm fully aware this is just down to the period when they were made in technology and what people's view of the future was. And I don't have a problem with it. Again, I can magic away in my own mind why these things are there. All I'm saying though is just from a visual look at, if you went from Enterprise to Discovery to the 09 film, you don't have to come up with convoluted explanations to try and connect the dots. Because again, Discovery is 10 years before Kirk, yeah? Yeah, so we're getting from, as you say, big, shiny, silver ships with holograms and all this sort of things, to what we see in... when did the first pilot take place? Because that was a few years before Kirk, wasn't it? So
it was, yes. The Enterprise is actually around in the universe of Discovery, except it can't possibly turn up because it would look absolutely ridiculous in comparison to the other designs of the ships, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because it had been round. Because that's the thing. The Enterprise NX, the original series one. It had been in service for 12 years before
we got Pike aboard it. It's there.
Yeah.
Pike! Stupid boy.
Don't tell him your name, Pike.
So...
And all this could have been avoided if they just set it after bloody Nemesis.
Yeah.
I don't understand why there's a problem with that. And people say, somebody on Twitter said, it's because then you've got to understand all the, 50 years of Star Trek history.
No, you don't.
Just set it elsewhere in the galaxy. It's a big old galaxy. Just set it in a remote outpost, similar to what Deep Space Nine did. And then you don't have to do constant continuity references.
And let's be honest, okay? Firstly, Star Trek. Most people know Star Trek. And those who don't can easily work this shit out. It's not fucking Isaac Asimov. It's not fucking Arthur C. Clarke. It's not super hard sci-fi. It's not like you're being introduced to the culture in Ian M. Banks books. It's really straightforward.
Voyager was a bit, to be fair, but
no, but the point is, it's a spaceship. It goes from here to there, and when they go to fast, if you want to talk basic, they go fast. They call it warp. It doesn't take 5 minutes to work out. And anyone who's watched any other science fiction in the last 50 years didn't need to have 50 years of history to know that that's a transporter or a teleporter or a shuttle or a spaceship that goes from here to there. They really didn't. They didn't, as much as we hate it, but fucking, the Andromeda Ascendant series, Andromeda, they explained the aliens and they explained the culture away in 2 episodes? What?
Pretty much.
3?
Pilot.
Yeah, the pilot. In Battlestar Galactica, did we need to have watched bloody Lorne Greene go from one end of the galaxy to the other before we knew what silence were?
Battlestar Galactica explained the entire pilot in the in the pre-opening credits.
Exactly. And that weak source bollocks about, you wouldn't understand what Star Trek's about. Get over your fucking selves, because Star Trek isn't hard sci-fi. It isn't even soft sci-fi. It's fantasy with a bit of sci-fi trapping stuck on top. Seriously. It's not. I mean, come on. We've seen science fiction. We watched a film today that has more imagination and more hard sci-fi going on in it than 50 years of Trek. And
I don't argue that. I just think of the TV shows, Star Trek was always... Okay, it might not be, again, finger quoting here, hard sci-fi, but to call it fantasy is doing it a disservice.
But my point is, you're talking about something that isn't going to take long to get hold of. You don't need 50 years of history. If you did, then this fucking show, would need a recap. Would need a full recap leading you up to from Enterprise, or leading you towards Kirk. Why do we need to know about Kirk and Spock if we don't know about them? 50 years of history, man. We need to know. It's like, well, clearly we don't, because it's ignoring pretty much everything. It's just complete bollocks, that excuse. I just don't agree with that at all. You need it to be... No. What happened? Next Generation happened. And, what did they do there? Did they spend 35 episodes explaining 3 years of the original series?
In fact, they were very careful for the most part to actually avoid references to the original series because they didn't want to be compared.
Yeah.
So actually, that's one of the reasons why, some of the stories were bloody awful in the first season, but actually it stood up on its own 2 feet.
And that's... So anyone who pulls that argument can just go take a long walk off a pier. It's completely and utterly straw-manning that in every way, shape and form. That's just bollocks. Okay, well, I mean, let's move away from the technology and the continuity for
No, let's not talk away from technology, because I have a huge issue with something, especially in episode 3 on the technology front.
Oh, there are so many issues with technology.
Well, there's a specific one.
Well,
fucking space fungus.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Should we just do? Should we just move
wild?
Should we just go into episode 3 as a separate thing?
No, we
right
look, I mean, 1 and 2. For the most part, I really liked them, and they were great. They were awesome. I'm happy with 1 and 2. The whole comparisons to the 09 film didn't bother me. In fact, didn't even pick up on them until you said. And even once you said, I was just like, I'm fine with it. And again, the space battle. I thought the space battle was fantastically well done. I loved the sense of weight the ships had. When the Europa gets destroyed by the cloaked ship, it was fucking awesome. It was just like, oh, wow. That again, these things had a sense of weight. I really didn't like the Klingon designs.
No, they weren't great.
That's just the general thing. And again, the Klingons look closer to the 09 Klingons than they do with anything we've seen in all of the other Treks. So there you go. But yeah, it's the first 2 episodes painted a show I was really looking forward to, which I posted online and said, I was really looking forward to this. I thought, yes, my doubts have been put aside now. I'm on board. This is going to be great. I was like, yes, come on, Discovery. First thing I did, Monday morning, went straight onto Netflix and I watched the episode. But then we got to episode 3.
Yes. So in episode 3, for those of you who are still listening and trying to work it all out,
all 2 of you,
yeah, who haven't sort of thrown your toys out of the pram. So basically, episode 3, we do get to finally see the Discovery.
Yeah.
Which is given.
What do we think? What do we think of the Discovery then? I guess.
Well,
just
too angular. That's my problem with it. I mean, Starfleet ships have always been about the curves, and this is triangular for some reason. It's bizarre.
Right. For me, I look at it. I keep saying for me. I have to stop saying that. Basically, the one thing that strikes me with the Discovery when they show it is that they are having trouble how to film it. There are angles where it clearly works, normally where the saucer is dominating the image.
Yeah, the saucer's the best bit of it, definitely, and so, even that's weird with its gaps.
Yeah, but I will give it credit. That does make sense now in context of what's going on that ship. But
yeah,
so separate science sections.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want viruses breaking out and taking over the ship, and then so you can isolate and quarantine bits off. But they do seem to do this thing where you're either looking at the ship from directly underneath or from directly on top, because those are the only kind of views that make it look like a
when they take the shuttle on board with the prisoner guys, and you see it from the rear. I mean, that's just terrible.
Space
it looks
Galaxy.
more like a Klingon D7 from that angle. It's just rubbish.
The best shots I've seen of the ship aren't actually of the Discovery itself. They were of the Glenn from a distance.
Yeah, but again, it was that same thing. They were sort of like 45 degrees up and looking down on it. You couldn't sort of, you can't, like when you first see the Discovery and you're underneath it, I suddenly thought, oh, that looks quite cool, because the saucer was kind of dominating the shot. You're kind of looking up at it at a weird angle, but you're looking up at it at an angle which doesn't really show you the secondary hull. You're essentially seeing some wings, the nacelles, and this big, ruddy, great saucer. It's only when the camera goes up and you see, and it beams the shuttle into the back, and it goes around the ship. You go, oh God, what am I looking at? And then when you see the shuttle itself, and it's space goatsy. I mean, it really is. It's just like pulling its ring piece apart at the back there. It's just like, what on earth am I looking at? And the fucking
okay, I just want to. Anyone who doesn't get that reference, do not look it up.
No, Slanesh watch. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Just don't. And the thing with the shuttles with their red flashes and sort of stuff like that.
Quite like that, actually. It's a theme on most of the Federation ships for some reason in this series, is they've got red flashing, which I can live with.
But it looked like I've seen video games where bad guys get hold of good guys' ships, and the usually the telling thing is that they've put on some weird red decals, usually with a skull on it. And it's like, and that's exactly what I thought here. I just thought, oh right, so this is a pirate ship that was the shuttle or something, because like we got red sort of streaky, spiky things all along the hull, and it's like that just doesn't feel. It feels like a Reaver ship from Firefly, in terms of color and markings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I quite like the internal sets of Discovery. Yeah. They feel properly Trek. Except they don't have enough chairs. That's a really weird thing. Like in engineering, and they actually talk about it. Oh, you're in my seat, and there isn't a seat there to sit on. So how can you be in their seat?
Yes,
they've got to stand all day at their consoles, and even the bloody ready room. And don't get me started on ready rooms, but there's no seat in the ready room. You've got Captain Isaacs there standing, legs akimbo behind his desk all day, apparently. Bloody hell, he must have, bums of steel, I should think.
Yeah, I was going to say, it feels like one of those modern day offices where the wankers tell you that you have to jog to your meetings.
Yes,
it actually reminded me of going back to Battlestar on the Pegasus. Remember
yes, because everybody had to stand then, didn't they? Yeah.
Admiral Kane wouldn't have any chairs because she wanted to keep the meetings short.
It's just like,
I mean, for me, I think what's happened here is Ralph McQuarrie is very Vogue. You know, especially with Star Wars and everything like that. And we know they had this concept art he did for that.
Phase 2.
It wasn't Phase 2. It was an unmade film, I think, Planet of the Titans. And it was an unused concept for that, where, you know, effectively it was the triangular hull. And I just think someone, and I'm guessing it was an order from up on high, dictated that this was how the ship had to look. And then it was just passed to the VFX team to make it happen.
Well,
whereas I think that's what's happened there, and they've just had to try and make the best of a bad thing there. It just, for me, it just, like you say, Lee, it just doesn't work from almost any close-up angle or anything like that.
No. The other thing is also, don't forget that, as we said in the opening, Discovery was supposed to be out for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
So having a ship that looked like something from Trek history
kind of made some sense.
Kind of made a bit more sense, if you know.
But
what I mean.
you know, anybody who uses a rejected design, you hello,
yeah,
McFly, you know.
Yeah, but
what we got lying around in the bin. Let's use that.
But in fairness, we have recently seen something where they've reused old designs, which is Star Wars Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Because the creature, because I can't remember his bloody name. The big alien, I can't remember his bloody name. Kanan's
I know,
one.
yeah,
the one with the pointy ears, purple, and he goes cannabis all the time, speaks all like that.
Cannabis,
cannabis.
That's a darker series than I knew about.
Well, exactly. But he was an original design for Chewbacca.
Zeb,
that's it. Zeb. So Zeb is actually original design for Chewbacca.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can reuse this stuff and repurpose this stuff, and that makes sense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
there's loads of stuff throughout Rebels where they've gone back to older, you know, Macquarie concept arts and brought it back. We had one episode where they had the actual Maria concept of 3PO in one of the episodes.
That's right.
I hate all those things.
Yeah.
What?
There's a reason why they didn't use those designs.
No, trust me, in Rebels, it works.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a thing about with Rebels, just because it's stylized, it kind of works a lot better. But, yeah, anyway.
But, anyway, getting back to what I was saying, I don't like... It just doesn't feel like it fits in the sort of time period it's supposed to be in. This is going to... Okay, so this is... I may as well just get this out of the way because it's the most pedantic thing I'm going to talk about here. The ship's registry is 1031, and it's described as a brand new ship in the first episode.
Yeah.
However, the Shenzhou, which is described as an old ship in the previous one, has a registry of 1667. Mm-hmm. That makes no damn sense. Don't get me wrong. Star Trek and fucking registry numbers pisses me off at the best of times. How can you just put a fucking letter after it? And it irritates me to fuck. But that one's... Why? Why do you give us...
Well, if it had been the 1031A... Oh, no, they're not opening that one.
Oh. What are you doing, Pete?
Why do you say this when you know I will kill you for it?
Poke with stick. Run away.
But yeah, so registry number is irritating. But that aside. I like the interior sets. I actually quite like the engineering set or the engineering bay because you've got that big wall at the back with the grill, and it looks like back in the old original series where the engine room was kind of hidden behind that.
Yeah, there was part of it that was grilled off, wasn't there?
Yeah. And that's kind of cool. From what I've seen of the bridge, not a huge amount, but you know, it's quite nice. Okay. It seems actually smaller than the Shenzhou, strangely enough. But yeah,
nice Jeffrey's tubes.
Jeffrey's tubes. And we've seen the mess. The mess hall, where apparently security teams won't actually bother to stop a fight because they're making bets on it.
Oh, here we go.
Let's just watch this happen, shall we?
Here we go.
What?
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see how this goes. Really? You're going to do that?
And then suddenly, the captain wants to see you. Well, how do you know that? You've not just been told that. So you've just been standing there waiting to watch the fight happen for it before and saying that. What a wally.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in that. I mean, again, the ships, when we first start the episode, we're on this shuttle flying through a nebula and something starts eating away at the shuttle. And then for reasons, the pilot decides to step outside and I guess
she's going out to wipe the windscreen.
Exactly. She's gone out to wipe the windscreen. But somehow gets knocked off.
Go
and then regret my decision.
all of a sudden, there's a tractor beam light engulfs the thing, lifts it up 20 feet, and it's out of a nebula. And it's like, why weren't you just flying 20 feet further up? What was this person died?
The up bit of the joystick wasn't working.
Yeah, she didn't pull back on the joystick. The thing with
and breath scans. Don't get me started on breath scans.
Yeah.
I mean, what the frack? They've never been seen before. They'll never be seen again. Why do we need breath scans suddenly? Well, for plot purposes, clearly.
It reminds me of Airplane 2.
Oh yes,
when they got to the doors and they go,
yeah.
shh.
Oh dear. Well, let's go even further with that then, because when we get irritating ensign, you're in my place. I've been, I'm just going to talk.
Tilly, who's the one at least friendly character in the entire thing. But,
yeah.
I can I just very briefly again, I quite like the character of Tilly, but you know what I really didn't like is that the filmmakers seem to be making fun of her.
Yes.
It didn't feel like. That she's going on about how she's got this condition and everything like this. And it wasn't like this is something that, it just felt mean-spirited on the part of the filmmakers.
Yeah, it was the it's that what's it, the Big Bang Theory thing again, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
the in the case of her, I mean, okay, I'm going to just say this. It doesn't reflect my opinions on anything, but I'm just going to say this. But it felt ham-fisted that she came out and she just started talking like this and really coming up, and she goes, "I'm sent over here because I'm special needs," and it was just like, what?
Yeah.
You don't need. Why ladle that on? Why just go? Ta-da! Let the character say for themselves. Just like no one and then have her go, "Michael, that's a funny name for a girl." It's just like, oh, for goodness, just stop, okay? Back up the truck. We've all got eyes. We can probably work it out from there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was ladled on very thickly, wasn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah. And to me, there was no need for it, because at the end of the day, we knew what was going on there. We didn't need to have someone essentially spell it out for us.
And why do they hire Captain Isaacs? And then get him to do a southern accent. What's the logic in that?
Ugh, yeah.
He's got to do that for the entire series now. It's like, what?
Yeah.
We all know he's British.
If you want to make him be sinister, you'd give him a British accent.
Exactly. That would have made more sense. But
I bet, I can almost guarantee it was down to a note from up on high. They didn't want any comparisons to Picard.
Yep.
Well, don't hire a British guy as your captain then, you dimwits.
The engineer, probably my least favourite character in the entire thing.
He's just awful, isn't he?
Ensign arsehole.
He basically spouts exposition in a really dickish manner.
And then on top of that, basically, just oh god, okay, I'm starting on. I'm getting all my words are just bundling up on this episode
because this episode is the worst by a mile. It's just I
mean, okay, here we go. I tell you what, rather than going through it bit by bit, let me just say this, and then you guys can have at it for a few minutes, because I got really frustrated with this episode. Basically, everyone is acting like an arsehole. Right, okay, fine. We've already established that this is the way it's going to be. Right, fine. But the problem is, this felt like it was being written by Damon Lindelof on the set of Lost. Everything was people being dicks for no reason, and everything was, it's a mystery box. Ooh, what's behind this door? Ooh. And then basically, when things needed to happen, they just happened. The story just went, oh, you know what, actually, this doesn't really matter. Like, for example, Ensign Tilly, who clearly they've made a big point of saying that she's special needs and kind of offloaded into a room which is a cargo container room, all this kind of thing. Totally against everything we've ever seen about Starfleet and Starfleet's acceptance of differences and everything. What they just suddenly gonna get, using your phrase there, Andy, you know, are they suddenly just going to get woke after 10 years and go, actually, you know what? Doesn't matter what you've got, what's going on. I
would like to distance myself from that phrase. It is not my phrase. I was merely using it as it is in the current vernacular.
Yeah, I know. I'm just using.
I don't even know what it means.
I just feel I need to make that very clear. Not my phrase.
No, fair enough.
I'm not accepting responsibility for that.
No, that's fair enough. But the point is, it basically means that you're aware of all issues in gender and racism and and minorities and everything.
It is not in of itself a bad thing at all.
No, it's not a bad thing. But the point is that if you were to look at Starfleet from the perspective of this show, Starfleet are just modern day humans being dicks in a corporation that just happens to have warp nacelles.
Oh, I think I mean, one of the things I watch at the minute is The Last Ship, which is not a bad little kind of drama thing set on a US Navy destroyer. The crew on the Discovery are bigger dicks than anything you find on that.
Yeah. So
by a country mile. So
just going to my point is like, if they exclude this ensign and they exclude her all over the ship and they basically berth her in a sort of cargo container room because they just want rid of her and all this sort of thing. Why is it her breath has got access to the super duper top secret room that nobody ever talks about?
Because that's why she's brought on the mission, isn't she? She tells them about what her specialism is. I think,
which
she's up on the spores or something. I don't know.
She's up on the spores,
but they do drop a line in about it because that's why she's taken on the away mission.
So this spores thing make no damn sense.
Yeah,
at all.
Well, like I say, you can have that in
it's a spore point for him. Sorry.
Yeah, yes, it is. Excellent pun, by the way, with your transporters.
Transport.
And that really doesn't make any sense. I mean, she's in that glass case thing and she's transported to Romulus and Andorra and all those other places, but she can still hear Captain Isaacs waffling onto her somehow. How's that working?
And a Borg colony, don't forget that.
Was there? I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, the one at the very end that she beams into is a big cavern. All the towers are all gridded up and fucking blocks and everything green light, and it's like, some special effects guy's just been given like free reign and just gone, oh yeah, let's stick a Borg in there. And I mean, the thing is that this whole episode just paints the Discovery and Locarno or Lorco or Lorcorno or whatever Jason Isaacs.
Lorco. That explains a lot.
Yeah, exactly, with his big floppy hat. As just being people who are just mystery dispensers and dispensers that don't exist in a Trek universe in any way, shape, or form. When we were in Enterprise, even though, and I spoke to Darren about this off air, even though they did like one or two bad things, it always came to bite them on the arse. And so they learn, and they were learning to be the Federation, to learn to be Starfleet, to learn to strive to look out for new worlds and new civilizations. This, in terms of morality and in terms of tone, would actually be before Enterprise.
Well, he downright comes out and says, "I don't give a damn about any interstellar laws."
Yeah.
What's the quote he goes? It's something about interstellar law is for cattle, context is for kings.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, how are you a captain, mate?
Yeah. Welcome, USS Goebbels. I mean, and that fucking room in the Discovery with the Gorn skeleton hanging up and the fucking tribbles all over the place, and something's been dissected on a wall, and now he's got one of those creatures from Doom 3 in there.
He's got no eyes, because you know it's bad if he's got no eyes.
Yeah, exactly. So, to me, I cannot help but feel that this is exactly what Dark Trek fandom wants. And the fact is, the response has essentially validated that. Everyone's like, oh yeah, this is the Trek we've been after. It is the same reaction that people were like, oh, we've read Dark Knight Returns, Batman, actually the Joker kills himself. Oh, it's really dark. Because they've come out of like the Neil Adams stuff and before that the sort of, the Pow Zap fucking Adam West stuff. Now
but I mean, who knows? Because we've had 3 really very different episodes. As I say, next week's could be a comedy romp, and we'll be we'll be having the bends again. You just don't know what you're going to get, do you?
Well, yeah, and again, given it's a much more serialized sort of thing, maybe this is just something we've got to take in enough of it to kind of get a sense of where the story is going in that direction. Again, by the end of it, we might look back at this and go, oh, actually, no, it all made sense.
Possibly.
I don't
not
think it
very
will.
likely.
Not likely, but stranger things have happened. An excellent show as well. People should watch that. But I just want to actually just very quickly just circle back to the spores because I do have a real bug in my bonnet about those.
Have at it because I'm gonna just bow out for a second. I'm gonna listen to you guys.
You grab a drink. Get your breath back.
You two carry on.
The thing about Star Trek is even its most outlandish technology always had a foot, a toe, something firmly grounded in science. Mm. And we now know that things like warp drive theoretically are possible. Transporters theoretically are possible. Replicators theoretically are possible.
I mean, Voyager went to extreme lengths to try and scientify everything to the extent that half an episode was spent explaining how this particular bit of science was working for you, which, to be honest, went rather too far to the extreme and I got bored. But, all credit for them for trying to be scientifically accurate as much as possible with this, a sci-fi universe. But
no, absolutely. But this spore, and they're talking about it's the muscles and veins of the universe.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there is a thing about biology is kind of physics in as much as there is electricity in bodies and things like that. It's kind of like there is physics in biology clearly, but
absolutely,
to jump from that to spores are going to transport you instantaneously to anywhere in the universe. Well, now did I just miss the step?
Excuse me, baking powder. It's just
You may as well go full Rent-A-Ghost and just hold your nose and disappear and appear somewhere else.
I can only. It's one of two things. It's either absolute utter BS, where they figure who gives a damn, or it's such obscure science they've delved into the deepest well they possibly can, just to try and be the smartest person in the room again. And I've done some research before coming into this because you guys know I like to try and be up and be science when it comes to this sort of stuff. I can't find any reference to any of this shit anywhere. The most I can find out is the name of one of the spores he gives is based off of a name of an extinct species of fungus which existed about 400 million years ago on Earth. That's the closest I can find to any scientific.
And I bet your life is far more complete having discovered that.
Absolutely, yes. It made the entire exercise very worthwhile.
But
I just
go on. I mean, the thing I know I was going to keep out of this, but I can't. The fucking spores and the engines and everything.
I tried to get out, but they pulled me back in.
This is Star Trek Into Darkness all over again. This is Robert Orci and fucking Kurtzman writing shit because they can't be bothered to write Star Trek. This whole thing, without understanding how it's going to affect the universe. Oh, we've got triple blood now that's got genetic coding in it that if we put it back into humans, brings them back from the dead. Right, fine. In which case, Star Trek 3, Star Trek Beyond, suddenly, where's
the jeopardy?
Where's the jeopardy? Fucking Bones just says, oh, all right, I'll let you die. I'll just inject you with some triple blood in a minute and we'll all be back to normal. Same thing with Star Trek Into Darkness. Oh, Benedict Cumberbatch can actually beam from his shuttle on Earth to Kronos.
Oh, maybe he's using the spores.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. This is going back to what I was saying about Episode 2 being a rip-off of the 09 Trek.
I get that, but it's
Robert.
I think we can.
It's Kurtzman. I'm saying it's Kurtzman reusing ideas without an idea one of how it's going to affect the universe and the world around it. Everyone seems to be doing, and Darren said this to me off air, that this Star Trek, it really works if it exists in a bubble. And that is very telling. To me, that is exactly what's happening here. They're just making shit up as they go, which is fine because that, you know, everything's science fiction, you can make up on you go. But the thing is, there is this kind of weird disconnect between what is happening in this show and what is happening to the whole of the universe as far as 50 years of history is concerned.
Exactly, because we know this spore system is not going to go anywhere because they're not using it in any other series. So what's the point?
Exactly.
And also, the whole thing about it being in a bubble, I mean, firstly, then again, why bother calling it Star Trek? I mean, the whole reason to tap into that universe, that rich tapestry of the world, they've spent 50 years world building. And you have this at your disposal, and then to just completely ignore it, it just seems like such a massive waste. But getting aside from that, I think, again, episode 3 specifically doesn't even work as good science fiction to my mind. The pacing's all over the place, and it comes back to what I was saying earlier. I think one of the reasons the pacing is all over the place is they're expecting us all to have a certain amount of familiarity with the world, the universe, the stuff that goes on there in Star Trek.
But isn't that the biggest problem, though? If you're going to expect that, then don't fuck with it.
That's my point. That's what I'm saying. It's, again, if you look at episodes... I mean, help me out here. Next, what's the episode when they come back to the Enterprise and it's frozen, stuck with a thing on the Romulan ship?
Oh...
There's one of those, but fundamentally the same sort of thing. You know, you come across an abandoned or, you know, a ship adrift, you beam on board. It teases it out for you. There's like, okay, there's something's wrong here. We're on here. There's empty corridors. You get a couple of bits and pieces. Oh, we should go here and try and find out what's the problem. You get there. Then there's the big jump scare. There's the big problem bit. Got to escape from it. Get out. I don't want to say it follows a formula, but it follows a certain structure and it builds. Whereas this episode here, I mean, maybe the whole boarding with Glenn thing should have been a separate episode, and this was just dealing with her coming on the ship and coming to terms with all that sort of stuff. But it just felt so rushed. It was just like they didn't have any interest in doing it. I mean, right down to when they blow up the ship and Lorca's disinterest, you know, it's just a ship. Who gives a fuck?
No, I mean, what a terrible waste of resource, because isn't this supposed to be a new design of ship?
It's an advanced prototype, is what they said.
And it's blowing it up. What the hell?
And again,
Escape, by the way.
Oh, thank you. They couldn't get the logs because you said the logs are corrupted. Yeah. There's bodies all over the bloody thing. Fucking tow the thing away or whatever. Or it just, again, that's very kind of pedantic-y, Star Trek-y sort of stuff. But it's just like, it just seems like such a waste. Okay, you beam a monster back across, but I think you could have done a whole lot more with it than what you did. It just felt really uneven and just what's the word I'm looking for here?
Wank.
Yeah, we could go with that.
I mean, well, I was going to say just because you just at that point just prompted me, but to me the one thing it feels like right now, and you know, forgive me if this is kind of going to upend some person's life because I've compared it, but it feels right now like Lost and the X-Files decided to have a science fiction baby, because right now what's happening is there seems to be the setup for a big mystery, and right now the way it's playing out feels exactly like Lost and feels exactly like X-Files, when you got to that point where you thought, actually, they don't know what their mystery is, do they? They have no idea what is, you know, down a well, what is the island made of, what the black goo does, whatever you want to pick.
The bees!
The bees, exactly. And because what you're getting is, instead of getting shown that there is something going on, you just get characters looking enigmatically at each other and going, yes, we shall see.
Strokey chin.
Yeah, meaningful pull out while they stare off into the middle distance, and the music tells you that there's something going on. There's not. When there's a good mystery, when there's a good story with a mystery at the heart of it, the mystery will be right there. Like for example, with Stranger Things is a perfect example. The Upside Down, the idea of the Upside Down was hinted at in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
How it comes to be and how it comes to exist and what you go to get into it becomes revealed with little or no effort, because you already are on the foot of knowing that there is something that is escaping from somewhere else. That is literally 45 minutes. In the case of Discovery, we're 3 episodes in, and now we've got that we had Burnham sneaking around the ship. Oh, of course, she's confined to quarters, but she sneaks around the ship, finding something in a mystery room because she's not allowed into it. Then having
with a hanky of smell.
Yeah, with a hanky and a fucking deodorant spray, and then on top of that you've got there's other rooms and there's other pods and there's other things, and then Lorco at the end going, "Oh yes, I knew you snuck into there because I've been watching you. Let me explain this particular mystery." Cut to a completely different room at the very end going, "Oh, this is another mystery room. Lorco's vivisection room with the beast from Doom in a fucking cupboard." And again, the other character comes in, the security guard comes in, looks around and goes, "Yep, you sure about this?" "Oh yes, I'm very sure. She's going to make a fine addition." And it's like, really? You're going to play the twiddle moustache pull out?
He was literally just a comedy moustache and a cape away from tying someone to a railroad track, wasn't he?
Yeah, but the thing is, that's my point. I think that moment there did what I think it's like a mission statement. I'll be even surprised if they don't do it again. That this is the X-Files mission statement thing, where you basically, every episode is going to be Burnham uncovering another room on the Discovery, being discovered by Lorco, or Locarno, or whatever his name is, having him go, "This is what we're doing," further eroding the Star Trek mythos of utopian ideals, and then, again, hinting at something else, until eventually what's going to happen, she's going to shoot him in the face. I mean, it's just that's what's going to happen. And then he'll die, and as he'll die, he'll say something along the lines of, "But what
I'll
about...
get you, Penelope Pitstop, next time."
Yeah. Or, "But you haven't seen...
Rosebud.
You haven't seen Room 31." And that'll be it. And then the episode will end as she walks into Room 31 or something like that. It just feels like that's what it's doing. It's setting up the Discovery to be nothing more than exactly that. A room to discover every episode and a mystery to solve every episode without being captured by Lorco. And I would be very surprised if that's not how it ends up going. Sorry, carry on. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to carry on doing the Inktober thing. Carry on.
Oh, okay, fine. I'm hoping it's something Blade Runner related.
No, it's not.
Never mind. I mean, for what it's worth, of the characters we've met so far, the only one that really interests me and I actually legitimately want to know more about is Saru. He seems like the only genuinely decent person on that ship.
No, he's not. He's a cock.
Why?
Well, apart from the fact that he basically he's a coward. Secondly, he doesn't take...
I disagree with him being a coward, and that's explaining what his species is. Of everyone we've seen in that ship, he was the only person there. I was like, actually, no, I'm interested in him. He seems like a genuinely decent person.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I disagree. I find the first episode sets him up as someone who was obviously jipping at the fact that Burnham was above him. And being snipey and snidey and generally a bit sort of acerbic and to one side. And then when he does it, and then when he sees her on the Discovery, he does things like, "You were a good officer until you weren't."
I quite like that line, actually.
I also like when, she says, "I heard your speech and everything," and he goes, "Yes, but you were dangerous and you still are." No, I like that. It shows, quite frankly, he's the only one of his head fucking screwed on straight. Because whatever else you want to say, she knocked out the captain and tried to open fire.
Yeah.
There's a chain of command. That's all I'm saying.
But the point is, he was as soon as she came out of the room and said, "Oh, you've got to do this." He didn't even take the order from her. He immediately questioned it.
Well, because I think he put 2 and 2 together.
From what? Based on what?
How very much against it Captain Giorgio was about it, and then she comes out and goes, "No, she's fine. We can blow him up now. We're good." She's on the phone to the Admiral, just clearing it. We're good.
Okay. Anyway, go and carry on.
Well, that was my point. My point is, I want to know more about that character. It's interesting. I certainly take Pete's point.
Species is extinct by the time we get to Next Generation. But
I was going to say, I take Pete's point that because all prequels are stupid, you keep getting introduced to characters and aliens who you never hear from again.
Yeah.
And that definitely seems to be what you're seeing throughout all of the Discovery, because there's always background aliens
there.
I
mean, they're really good designs.
Yeah.
I like them, but it's like, well, where were these people before? Why have we never seen them again?
In retrospect, the Enterprise was pretty damn...
it was so full of human beings, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? It's pretty...
Kirk must have been a right racist, I think. Not having you on my ship, you look alien.
Yeah, you only put up with Spot because, you kind of cover the ears.
Vaguely human. Yeah.
Again, it's down to that thing. I couldn't tell because I saw it seemed like there was another robot on the bridge or an android. I couldn't tell if it was the same one from Vincenzo that's been upgraded though.
No, apparently that's not. I did a bit of digging on that because it was bugging me slightly. Just because Abri was when we were watching Orville was going, we've seen that Discovery, we've seen that Discovery. It's like, come on, they were made roughly the same time. They're not going to know, but the one with the sort of the robot head. Yeah. From the first episode. Actually, apparently she's a human being. She's just wearing some sort of targeting helmet.
Oh, okay.
According to Memory Alpha, anyway.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
See, that's
Daft Punk. She's a Daft Punk fan. It's a religion in the
future. Yeah. She's just going to start singing "Get Lucky" before you know it. I mean,
oh yeah. I like how it had the red alert signs come up as well.
Yeah, because you don't know that someone's worried unless their face goes bright red.
Red, yeah. Yeah, the siren isn't a giveaway. You have to have it written across somebody's face.
How stupid is Black Alert as well? I mean...
Oh, I know. Was that... What now?
What?
I mean, I thought Blue Alert was a bit obscure, but Black Alert?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We have Blue Alert for when it's something that doesn't warrant red or yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just...
It's the only way you can tell it's sinister.
Well, exactly. Again, it's that whole thing. It's like, what is going on? Woo! And the whole thing with moisture being suddenly appearing out of the, in gravity, flying out of the fucking floor or whatever it was, coming out the...
Oh, bloody hell, I've just realised that the Mirror Universe Discovery must be full of, fluffy bunnies and people hugging each other, and it's all painted pink.
Yeah. And he's got a wicked goatee as well.
Yeah,
I reckon the Mirror Universe Discovery actually got blown up by everyone because they just turned up and sort of offered everyone a cup of tea
cupcake
as soon as they appear. Hello, everyone. You must be new. Come and sit down. The door-to-door Jehovah's Witnesses of the Star Trek universe.
We're running a coffee morning for Macmillan Cancer, Die!
Exactly. Fuck you! So, not keen, no. Okay, well, I mean, so where do you think it's going?
We don't know. It's all over the place.
I don't think it knows where it's going.
And then drunk behind the wheel is the bottom line.
I mean, I don't.
It's going to hit a lamppost. That's where it's going.
I don't know. I mean, I personally, I just think that this thing is fun. I mean, I get the feeling it is trying way too hard to just rail against old Trek, and yet somehow it wants to have its cake and eat it. It wants to be saying, "Oh, look, we're Star Trek. Look, we're Star Trek. Look, we're Star Trek. Look, we're Star Trek. Look, we got Vulcans and Klingons and everything." And then when it comes to actually doing anything Star Trek-y, if you know what I mean, going, oh God, no, that's so wussy. Let's just have war. Let's have war. So last year. So,
and the great irony is we do have the Orville. I know we're trying to limit things, but that is doing the Star Trek thing.
Yeah, they've even got Klingons that look like the Klingons in this series, don't they?
Yeah,
because episodes 3 and 4. are pretty much lifted straight out of seasons 3 and 4 of Next Generation.
Pretty much. I mean,
but done better, to be honest. Well, at least
yes.
I've only seen episode 3, but yeah.
Now, who had on their bingo card Pete would praise Orville somewhere? Because I certainly didn't.
No, I didn't. I'll be honest.
First episode, I was like, not so sure about this. Second episode, that's actually a pretty good episode of Trek. Third episode, that's actually better than Trek.
Yeah, I didn't have. I'll be honest with you, I didn't have that pegged. I thought Pete would just be nope. But no, I mean, it is really ironic that the minute I ask for Star Trek to do something different,
you don't like it.
I don't like it. But
it's all on you, Metcalf.
Yeah.
Damn it, Metcalf! You had one job, Metcalf. One job.
There's raptors in the kitchen.
Raptors were in the kitchen. What raptors? Doom-free monsters were in the kitchen. People turned inside out.
Yeah, but very badly mushed up.
I mean, again, it was a great effect, but it did seem a bit.
This is Star Trek. I can't. Yeah, my kids are sitting in the room. Hang on.
Much. Yeah, we're PG-13 at most.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just. It's just.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, it's It's frustrating and irritating, and the problem is, it's frustrating and irritating because not because it's trying to do something different. I think as a science fiction show, to me, it's fine. It's just a science fiction show. I just think with holding on to the Trek name and trying to call it Trek by anything but Star Trek, but we're at war, just makes it feel like fan fiction and crap fan fiction at that. And I'm just so aware of that this is going to just turn into Mystery Box 101 next week. Burnham goes into room 4 on the deck 12. And the
well, have you watched the teaser for next week's one yet?
Nope.
Would you like to?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm going to wait and see. Is basically the point.
Okay. Fair enough.
Why? What's going on in? No. Go on. Tell us. Come on. You can't tease something like that. Go on.
Oh, I entirely can. Just did, you see?
Okay. Do you want me to go and watch the teaser then?
No, I'm just, you're talking about going into rooms. I'm just saying she might go into a room.
What, to find a mystery room? Is it a mystery
Possibly.
room? Oh, for fuck's sake. See? Oh, God. And today's mystery room is brought to you by Spores. Spores for all of your transwarp dimensional needs.
Look, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put it in the chat. If you watch it, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. It's just going to be an option available to you there.
Can I also throw out one last thing as well? If you've got the ability to transwarp anywhere, and I'm going to call it transwarp because that's what I think it is. If you transwarp anywhere with your magic mushrooms,
mushrooms,
yeah, badger. In Locarno or Lorco or whatever his fucking name is, I really don't know. Every time I think Lorco, I think of bloody Thundercat.
It's Jason Isaacs.
Okay, Captain Isaacs. If he's that much of a warmonger, if he's that keen to end the war as fast as possible, and you've got an ability to transwarp anywhere, why not just stick a nuclear bomb or a photon torpedo in that tube and just have it materialize on Kronos? Because she went there. So why not just do that right away? Jobs
because shut up, that's why.
I mean, literally, he transported something that, as we saw with the Shinzu incident, a photon torpedo warhead is about the size of a football. Now, I'm no expert, but I think she's a bit bigger than a football. And I think you could easily put half a dozen photon torpedo warheads in that room and just beam them straight to bloody Kronos and then just detonate them. End of your war.
Maybe. I mean, again, just looking at what we've got coming up next week in the thing, lots of Lorca saying, this is a ship of war. This is a warship. We're at war. War.
It's war. I can't.
War?
Okay. I'm tell you what.
What is it good for?
You're gonna hear it now because I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna look at it now. Oh, here we go.
I just realised there's a button called Watch Together. Shall we watch together, children?
Oh yeah. Shall we do that?
How does that work?
Yeah. There's a button. If you look in the chat, it says Watch Together. There we go.
Discovery is no longer a science vessel. It's a warship. If we're going to win this thing, we have one chance to get it right.
We received a distress signal.
I told you we'd be ready when you called, and we are. Go.
Open containment plan's not a good idea.
Collision is imminent.
Shields up.
I'm sorry.
Star Trek Discovery. New episodes Sundays.
So basically what you've got there is she discovers Doom Beast. And
Number 2.
Doom Beast.
It's the Vivus. And at the end of that one, Lorca will be in another seedy room of something dodgy. And then the next episode will be her finding that one.
Yep.
See, I've got a peg now, you see.
Yeah. I looked at that and there was bits of that where I thought, okay, that's Star Trek again, you know. But the Discovery, it beamed in.
No, that's their, because that's one thing I quite like is their warp effect is that instantaneous.
Yeah,
and I like
zip,
that.
Zip, zip.
Yeah, I do like that because that's one of the things I loved in the 09 one. You're going faster than light, which means a minute you can see it, and then all of a sudden you can't because it's gone faster than light. None of it's kind of stretching yourself out to the distance and then a flash. So I like the warp effect.
Okay. I mean, it's faint. A faint dusting of icing sugar on what is essentially a massive turd cake.
I think it's too early to decide if that's chocolate or turd at this point. Can't even smell it yet.
I mean, at the end of the day, it is a good science fiction show.
Oh, we've had 2 good science fiction episodes and some
about
some other thing.
All I'm saying
and
is,
that's the other thing is, again, a lot of people, like you said, were giving it the caveat of it's a good science fiction show or it exists in a bubble or anything like this. For my money, episode 3 was not a good piece of television, frankly. It just downright wasn't.
No.
Take away from Star Trek, take away from it. Especially when you put it up against things like The Orville, like The Expanse. Hell, like fucking Battlestar Galactica and stuff from close to 10 years ago now. It felt very, very, very flat. So, and again, bear in mind, this was probably the true pilot. And look, I don't think Trek's ever managed to do a good pilot, period. So I will give it a pass in that respect. But that episode on its own, just for me, it made me doubt what the goodwill that it had built up in the first 2 episodes.
Well, they can shout war as much as they like. They can do that and use that as a justification for being what they are. But we've seen war in Star Trek done in the Next Gen universe. We've seen Kirk dealing with Romulans. We've seen Kirk dealing with Khan in Wrath of Khan. We've seen battles and we've seen war, but in every single case, including bloody Enterprise with the, with the Xindi, every single time there's an ideal behind Star Trek, which is one of optimism, hope, and forward thinking. This is not in Discovery. End of story. It just isn't.
It certainly wasn't there in episode 3.
No. So, what, but I just can't get past
Even?
that. Yeah, it's like I say, it's I've got my own problems with Star Trek that I've had for the last couple of years, but even so, I can spot when Star Trek is doing something right and when it's doing something wrong. And right now, this is just fan wank. It just is, and it's fan wank in all the wrong places. It's Kurtzman and Orky's kind of version of Star Trek, where it's just like they'll do something, create something, and then just fuck off without considering that somewhere there's about 1.5 million writers and nerds and fans going, well, how does that all tie into this bit? Today, what if chips had sentience and we created a anti-chip law? Just just no reason for the stuff that they're doing other than just to put their own stamp on it. That's how I feel, anyway. Any last thoughts from you guys? Or has Pete disappeared?
Is he still there, Pete?
I'm still here.
Look, I will watch this series in its entirety. I'm straight up, because I'm going to do it because it's Star Trek. I'm going to do it because it's science fiction. If I want to bitch about it, I need to be informed. So I will do that. Hell, I even watched all of Voyager, and my thoughts on that show are very well known. But again, episodes 1 and 2, I really, really enjoyed. Episode 3, I really did not. I know that it had a very troubled production, and I know there was a course correction mid-show. So I will be very interested to see what that course correction looks like, if we're even aware of it, if we can see it happen. It's also still unclear if this is an anthology series or not. Still don't know if it's just one season with the Discovery and then we go on to something else, because, as you mentioned, it's only 10 years before Kirk. Typical series these days last, 5 or so years? I think they're probably going to want to avoid getting too close to the original timeline, because as muddy as it is already, it gets even muddier then. So I could easily see they do this year is Discovery, and then next year it's a different story. And I'd actually be absolutely okay with that. I'd prefer that, frankly. Tell a good story in a year, done, and on to something else.
Right.
But we will have to see.
Okay. And what about you, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's been so uneven so far that who knows what the next episode will be like. It might be quite enjoyable because we've just got no idea what to expect. So, yeah, we'll see how things develop.
Okay. And just one thing before we go. Out on the Facebook group, Andy posted up a call to arms thread for a little bit of feedback, see what other people thought of it. And
I completely forgot about that. I did, didn't I?
Yeah, so I'm just going to troll through a couple of them. Yes. Firstly, Chris Johnson said that this didn't feel like Star Trek at all, and the Discovery is so fugly. Hunter Langley said, what an absolute wonderful series that captures the spirit of Star Trek. In the first few episodes, they've managed to really hit the nail on some socially relevant issues to cover the sci-fi. But enough about the Orville.
Orville, I was going to say, that sounded more like a description of what the Orville is.
Exactly. But enough about the Orville. Discovery isn't bad, but it's just nothing special. I'll keep watching, but between it and the Orville, there's only one that I'm looking forward to watching every week. And then this is an interesting one, and like I say, I'm just reading it as it said. So this is from Robin Node, and he writes, 13 and a half minutes into episode 3, a woman walks in and immediately starts going on about special needs, facepalm, head desk, and a sudden urge to get my cricket bat. Now, I've got learning disabilities, so I'm a wee bit sensitive to this kind of thing, but I'm willing to bet that in the future, with capitals, because frankly, I have no idea when any Star Trek is set, thanks to star dates, but nobody, this is in capitals, nobody with special needs will talk like that. They certainly don't bloody do it today, and big old berserk button that got smashed by CBS there. But considering they also run the Big Bang Theory, which I bloody despise and wish that every power in the verse was never made, I can't say I'm surprised. And there I was thinking that I was really the only going to get annoyed with the Klingon language, which sounds like the kind of nonsense I hear kicking out time. Edited to add, I've just found out this, brackets, admittedly unsourced directly, quote, on Tilly, because he didn't find out her name, but Tilly, said that the character is included to represent people at the bottom of the ladder of the Starfleet hierarchy, because that doesn't sound bloody discriminatory at all.
Yeah, see, again, that's just something that Star Trek was always really, really good at, that all-encompassing, especially within Starfleet. Again, one of the big things in the first series, maybe more so on the pilots, but Spock was supposedly at a bit of a disadvantage being the first Vulcan into Starfleet.
And
supposedly.
A half Vulcan as well.
Exactly. And there was supposed to be there was always the suggestion that this was going to cause prejudice, but it never materialized. It was never apparent. He was always just accepted. Every time you got more grief with admirals or people from other ships being dicks than you had any time within the crew itself.
Yeah. So, just continuing along the feedbacks. If anybody has any thoughts on these feedbacks as well, by the way, just fire up, pipe in. Pete, anything so far?
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, it's okay, fine. I'm just making sure because, like I say, I'm going to just go through these things and just rattle off. But if you've got any thoughts on these, just chime in. Murray Christensen says, see, I've been quite impressed. Really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. The third was, as has been Andy said, more like the actual pilot actually setting up the series. And I wonder if spreading it over 2 episodes would have worked better than as we very much got this cadet is a comedy sidekick, this is the snippy scientist, etc. I also think we could have done without the captain revealing he had captured a beastie, as I would have preferred to at least try to be subtle about him being a wrong-un.
Yeah. No, it is not subtle.
No. A big issue with this format is, as I had been warming to the Shinzu crew, and I didn't click with the Discovery crew that as much off the bat. So, bets that the fungus drive will open up a gateway to the hell dimension. And yes, the ship really is hard to like. Granted, we haven't seen her do anything yet, but I'm not sold. Again, we have had ships in previous 2 episodes that I liked better. Also, negative space just makes me think of bursting for a pee and knowing that the nearest toilet is directly across an empty bit of the ship.
I will say, and again, you alluded to this earlier, though, that does make a lot more sense now when you consider the somewhat sketchy stuff they're supposedly doing on the ship. Exactly. If you suddenly need to isolate a section of the ship, it's a lot easier to do it that way.
Anyway, Murray continues, I'm still interested in enjoying the episodes, but if you had to give me a choice of this or Star Trek Shinzu, I'd pick the latter. Also, and I'm still going to keep beating this drum, is there any reason for this to be a prequel? Taking out the gratuitous Sarek references, busiest Vulcan ever, and this could easily be 20 years after Voyager.
Yeah, I really don't see why they just can't do that and just get away from the 23rd century. It's just strange that in this future we keep going to its past. You know, there's a weird, cognitive dissonance going on there. I mean, there's one here from David Renee. I think I said that right. I said this jokingly before, but I'm a bit more convinced now. We've got the weird experimental ship docking with a prison transporter, no less. We've got the thrown together crew that doesn't essentially get along. We've got the charismatic but probably bonkers leader. We've got the some anti-hero chick. Oh, and when the Klingon turns up again, the agent of will be an outcast from his own people. This isn't Star Trek. It's Blake 7. I call shenanigans.
Though oddly without.
Any comment on that?
Pete,
since you're both more familiar with Blake 7 than I.
I'm not seeing it myself. But
what you're not seeing? You're not seeing the connection, or you've not seen Blake 7?
No, I'm not seeing the connection.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get the point though. The idea that this is going to be a bit more ragtag. But
well, I suppose if they blow themselves up halfway through the series, and we can kind of call it good until they start to bring it back again.
Yeah. Maybe Kirk will turn up at the very end and shoot them and all gun them down.
Yeah. But again, he also makes reference to the very glamorous docking bay at the rear of the ship.
oh yeah, it looks like gaping docking bay looks like a ship's arse.
Very much so.
Yeah. Another one was from Justin Pearson Smith, and he writes. Now this is a bit of you need to buckle up for this one. So interrupt when you feel like it. Yeah. Can of Worms officially opened. I'm going to leave the Orville aside for this one and focus solely on Discovery. I'm also going to focus on episode 3 over the initial 2, which, as others have already stated, worked more like a prequel. So where to begin? I think there are 2 questions to ask. Firstly, is this a good Star Trek series? I think it's fair to say that even at its darkest, Star Trek is usually recognised as being an optimistic look at the future. In the spin-offs, we have the Prime Directive reassessed, and in Deep Space Nine, we see what happens when our ideas are confronted with military force that doesn't share them. In Voyager, we have the ship trying to get back home, figuring how to remain true to those values without any support structure, and in the Enterprise, we saw how they reached them in the first place. Discovery seems to be asking the same questions as DS9 with a slight twist. It's asking, what do we do when we have a military superpower on our border and we want to be just wants to be left alone? You could see this as an allegory for North Korea or white nationalist movement in America. Either way, we've yet to see the Federation take on board a position where I feel like I'm behind them. I think this brings me to my next issue, which is that overall we don't have a crew that I feel I can get behind. Half the characters seem morally bankrupt, with the exception of Tilly, who is just annoying, and Saru, who just seems to be one character to get behind. Lorca is a good character, but pitting him against Michael, who has yet to become someone I'm invested in, feels like a misfire. Yet we move on to set design. Aesthetically, it looks fantastic. It's probably the best-looking Mass Effect TV series we'll ever get. I just wish we didn't have the writers from Andromeda on board.
Yeah, someone's playing to his audience of air, isn't he?
Well, you know, I've deliberately stayed away from using those
and
two words.
I appreciate it. I honestly do.
It's an easy go-to for me. But the point is, you know, it's well made. Anyway, he continues. I could rant on about the period it's set in, or the redesign, or the Klingons, etc. But I'm bored of that argument. All I'm going to add is that I think it's a little overdone, and please lose lens flare. So
lens flares?
Well, I don't get that. But
there's only one or two, to be honest.
Yeah, that was only really in the first episode, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, is it a great Star Trek series? No, I think they've deviated too far from what Star Trek is about. Is it a good sci-fi series? It may be a little too early to condemn it yet. Episode 3 is stronger than the prequel episodes. Okay. But it still needs to bring in more characters that we can get behind. I'll still watch it and hope it improves over the next few episodes. But for now, when I want my Trek fix, I'll be looking elsewhere. I think we all know where he's looking because.
Oh yes, but I have to say I definitely don't agree with episode 3 being better than the prelude episodes. But we've just done however many hours of this discussing that, so
yeah, exactly.
I won't retread it.
Okay, and finally, where is it? We got 2 more pieces here, and I will just say. One's from Adrian Saunders, Mighty Zim, and he says, I just got the 3rd episode. Okay, I can see why they didn't start with episode 3 and had to bolt on a mess that was episode 1 and 2. Those are a bit of a mess, using 3 time zones to tell quite a basic movie. And I hate the Klingons, who sound like they've just visited the dentist. The technologies don't match up to the timeline, and above all that, nothing matters in 10 years because the war is over. The Federation survives, and whatever is going on doesn't work. While the individual episode is an interesting one, the run will not have any consequence.
I would just want to address something I've seen elsewhere a few times. It's this whole thing that you can't ever tell a prequel story because you know how the world ends up and everything, and you know there's no investment. I don't agree with that if the story's done well. If the crux isn't do they survive, because then what's the point? You know it is. You can still tell an interesting story in that time period, but if you have good writers.
Well, which we know at this point we don't. But the thing is, you know, at the end of the day, this is about the Klingon War. And it's not about the formation of the Federation.
Well, no, but we don't know if it is about the Klingon War. That has to backdrop to it. We don't really know what this show is about yet,
and nor do the writers.
Exactly.
which is kind of weird when you think about it, because what is there? Is there 8 or 10 episodes, and then that's it?
Something like. Hang about. Let's have a quick
look.
Look
12 or 13, isn't it?
Star Trek Discovery Season 1. It is 15 episodes.
Right, so we're a fifth of the way through the series. Just consider that for a second. We're a fifth of the way through the series, and all 3 of us have just said we don't know what this series is about.
Well, okay, but let's just take away 1 and 2. So let's say it was a 13-episode series.
Okay, so we're 1/13 through, but then the maths looks all weird.
I totally take your point, and I take your meaning. All I'm saying is I don't think... I could be wrong. They might make the war the whole point of this, in which case they have done fucked up. But I think the war is a backdrop to whatever story they're looking to tell. I just don't know what that story is yet. Is it a redemption arc for Michael? Is it the Federation growing up? I mean, is this how they established the Prime Directive? Because we don't know if the Prime Directive is in force at this point. We know in TOS, Kirk says it became law about 13 or so years ago.
Yeah.
And I think you can, I don't know when he said it in Star Trek. So if he said that in season 3, this is the time that the Prime Directive became a thing.
Yeah.
We don't know what is the story yet. But my point comes back to, again, I think you can still do prequel stories if you have good writers, even if you know the grand scheme of it. Although it wasn't perfect, Rogue One being an example.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last bit of feedback is actually from Alistair McNair, who says, and this kind of addresses this point, he says, just watch the third episode, different vibe, all right, but well presented and very watchable. I think it's playing a long game and not pandering to the old Trek cliches, which I'm glad to see the back of. The idea it's not a relevant story because we eventually know that we win is odd. I knew that the Dominion would be beaten, that Voyager would get home, and it didn't make the journey any less enjoyable.
So, yeah, that. I should have just read ahead before I went on that long thing. But, yeah, that.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. And Adrian Saunders finally finishes off saying, so is Discovery the TV version of Federation Science Hold My Beer meme? I think so. But anyway.
Maybe. We'll
see.
Yet to be decided. Yet to be seen.
Yeah. I think it's...
just if we're doing a whole summing up thing,
yeah,
I think the biggest problem I'm seeing with it thus far is there are too many chefs in the kitchen. This is a show that's being driven by committee. I would presume has been focus grouped to absolute death. Ever since Brian Fuller left, I think it's been without a strong hand on the tiller.
Yes.
It doesn't have a good showrunner. And while back in the day with Next Gen you had Berman, Braga, and Moore, and everything like that, or you had Ira Stephen Bear and Michael Piller running DS9 and everything. I don't know who is guiding this. I feel that when Fuller left, it was just kind of left to everyone to try and pick it up, and they're kind of scrambling.
Which would also make sense for suddenly, Kurtzman and Orkey's sort of old scripts to kind of get repurposed in a way.
Yeah, and again, it also makes sense if what my friend said was true, that the first two episodes were originally meant to just be seeded as flashbacks, which explained how the character of Michael, why Michael is who she is at the beginning of that episode 3, and you get these little flashbacks which explain and build up to the war kicking off, and you see her responsibility there. Like you said, that makes sense, because if they suddenly turn around and say, "Oh, actually, we need to do this now," okay, fine, we've got to just, shit. There's one here with Khan. No, let's not do that one again. Something here with the Beastie Boys. No. Here we go. The one where they beam over to the ship. Fine, I get that. My hope is that once they got over Fuller's leaving and figured out what they were doing, they will manage to get a good direction and, steer the show to something good. Because, again, I don't want to be negative on Discovery. I don't ever want to be negative on Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I want it to be good. So I hope they can make it good.
I honestly, as much as I have my issues with Trek in general, I want it to course correct, and I'm hoping that, as you say, mid-season it's going to just turn a corner. Because that by that point they know they've got a couple of extra weeks to kind of steer things back on track and rewrite a few things and course correct, reassess. But I genuinely don't see how they're going to do that. I don't see how they're going to do that, because I just think that they're cast. The die is cast with that third episode, and by the looks of the trailer for the fourth one, it's not going to change. It's just going to turn into...
That seems like more of the same, doesn't it?
It does.
Here's the title for the next episode.
Go on.
The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry.
Oh, fuck off. Seriously. I mean, that's J. Michael Straczynski style, descent to ascent to apotheosis or whatever it is. That kind of like 2 seconds worth of Googling and you can work out the entire plot by looking at the so clever title. Oh, really? So
second longest title in all of Star Trek.
Well, whoop-de fucking doo-doo. I mean, okay, so let me just put it this way. They go to rescue that ship that we see in the trailer, and then all of a sudden they realise that they've got to go and do something else which is war-based, and so Lorca basically just leaves the ship that needs rescuing burning in the sun because it's they can't risk the Discovery, it's too important. So he doesn't
tune in next week. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Yeah. So it's going to just be a case of actually guess what? The Discovery is much more important, and we don't need to listen to the people who we have to save. No, not if we can. Not if we have to. We could win this war. No. I can see it. I can just fucking hell. Right.
What about you, Pete? What did you think?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm just going to wait and see for now.
You going to stick it out for a while, or do you have like a?
I mean, it's from that trailer, it doesn't look like the next episode is going to be much better. But I'm going to give it 2 or 3 more episodes and see how we go.
So okay. So look, we get to the mid-season, and after episode 9, I think that is, in the middle of November. So shall we get together again in November? And those of us who are still watching it, so probably me, can see how it's done over it, and we kind of report in, if you will.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to do a sort of mid-show score draw assessment. Your football thing.
Put it this way: if it's gotten to episode 9 and we still have no idea what's going on,
yeah, so it's gone seriously wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I all I know is it's now nearly Friday, which means that a new episode of The Orville will be available. So that's where I'm going. Exactly. And that's the response right there. Yay. A new episode of a thing.
And Charlie Theron's in this one.
Yeah. New episode, thing I like, I'm going to watch it. Whereas right now, Monday's going to come round, Discovery's going to go on air, and I'm going to be like, well, I've got nothing to do at lunchtime. And that's going to be that's the attitude right there.
Hang on, I want to see what's the title of this episode coming up.
What?
Priya.
What, of the Orville?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Priya.
Yeah.
And it's directed by Jonathan Frakes.
There you go.
Who, we learnt this week, once played Captain America.
Yes. Yeah, on the Sci-Fi 25 podcast, which if you're not listening to that, do take a listen because it's really interesting. I really like that. That was a good steer. Thank you, Andy.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Right. Okay, well, that's it. Let's wrap this up. So, this is longer than like all 3 episodes of the Discovery put together. Who wants to promote their stuff? Pete, go for it.
Well, if you've not heard enough about Discovery, we are doing we're covering that on a sort of weekly basis, sort of 24 hours after the episode goes up, giving our views. And we're also back in the days of Deep Space Nine, where there'll be an episode going up at the weekend covering another 2 episodes of season 5.
Cool. And where can we find all of this?
That's on Geek Planet Online and on Ian Tunes.
Nice. And what about you, Andy?
You can find me on the Grand Prix podcast and the Band of Brothers podcast with Elton. And both of those are at Rogue 2 Media and on Facebook and YouTube. I mean, you're adults out there. You know how to use Google. And you can also catch me for today only on a pub-isode of The Black Dog.
Yeah, which is also a complete duplicate of the one that's on the Space Doc Jury feed. So
exactly,
don't worry about it.
There are no subtle differences, apparently.
It's not like if you listen to it all and play it backwards, you hear a message from John Lennon.
Yeah, exactly.
Or do you?
Yeah. Okay, and you can hear me every week on the slightly rejiggered formatted Black Dog podcast, which is at blackdogpodcast.com and on iTunes. Right, and you can join us all on Twitter, which is at SpaceDocJury, and on the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/SpaceDocJury. Right, well, that's that. Thank you all for listening. I'm sure you've all got thoughts and things off after listening to us lot ramble on, in which case put them up on the Facebook group or put them up on Twitter and, if we revisit this, we'll come back to it and we'll pull more of your feedback. So there you go. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you,
sir.
And we'll see you all next time. Till then, tatty bye.
Bye.
I should go.
I thought we were going to do Mass Effect.